In a world where first impressions can shape our reality, one woman defies the odds. Meet Mabel, a 65-year-old black woman who walks into a high-end car dealership, ready to make her dreams come true. But instead of being welcomed, she faces judgment and prejudice from the very people meant to help her. What happens next is a powerful story of resilience, transformation, and the fight against bias, proving that true worth goes beyond appearances. This is not just her journey, it's a lesson for us all. Before we continue with the story, you should comment where you are watching from. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. We have another episode for you tomorrow. Mabel walked into the car dealership, her colorful muumuu dress swaying gently with each step. She wore a bright scarf that added a touch of flair to her outfit. The dealership buzzed with energy, filled with young, sharply dressed salesmen who moved about with confidence. Mabel felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she entered this world of shiny cars and polished floors. As she stepped further inside, she noticed the way the salesmen glanced at her. Their eyes flickered over her outfit, and she could almost hear their thoughts swirling around her like a storm. They whispered to one another, their voices low but filled with judgment. Mabel's heart sank a little as she sensed their assumptions about her. They saw an older woman in bright clothes and immediately decided she didn't belong here. Mabel had saved for months to buy a new car. She had dreams of driving something sleek and modern, something that would make her feel proud. But as she stood there, surrounded by the glitz of the dealership, she felt small and out of place. The dismissive glances from the staff made her question herself. Did they think she couldn't afford a nice car? Did they believe that someone like her didn't belong in such an upscale place? Despite the unease creeping into her mind, Mabel took a deep breath and reminded herself of her purpose. She was here to find a car that would bring joy to her life, not to let anyone else's opinions hold her back. With determination in her heart, she moved toward the nearest salesman, hoping to find someone who would see beyond her appearance. But as she approached him, he quickly turned away, pretending to be busy with another customer. Mabel felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. She had been ready for this moment, but it seemed like no one was ready for her. The bustling atmosphere around her felt more like a barrier than an invitation. As Mabel continued to navigate through the showroom, she caught snippets of conversations among the salesmen. They laughed and joked with each other, their camaraderie starkly contrasting with the cold reception she received. It was clear that they were more interested in selling cars to younger customers who fit their image of success. Mabel's resolve began to harden. She refused to let their attitudes define her experience. She spotted another salesman who appeared less engaged in conversation with his colleagues. With renewed hope, she approached him, ready to share what she was looking for. The salesman glanced at Mabel briefly before returning his focus to his phone. He barely acknowledged her presence, and Mabel felt the familiar sting of rejection again. It was as if she were invisible in this space filled with shiny cars and bright lights. Frustration bubbled inside her, but Mabel held on tightly to her patience. She knew that she deserved respect just as much as anyone else in that dealership. With each passing moment, the dismissive attitude of the staff fueled her determination even more. As Mabel continued to walk through the dealership, she overheard snippets of conversations about luxury cars and high commissions. The salesman spoke about their latest deals with excitement that seemed reserved only for those who fit their mold of success. Mabel's heart raced as she realized how deep-seated these prejudices were. She spotted a beautiful car parked prominently in the showroom, a sleek model that sparkled under the lights. It was everything she had dreamed of owning. Mabel approached it slowly, feeling drawn to its beauty. But as soon as she reached out to touch it, a manager appeared out of nowhere. The manager's eyes narrowed as he assessed Mabel from head to toe. Without saying a word, he gestured for one of the younger salesmen to come over and assist her instead. The message was clear: someone like Mabel didn't deserve attention from him. Mabel felt a rush of anger mixed with disappointment wash over her again. How could they treat her this way? She was here for a reason, to buy a car, and yet they were making it so difficult for her. Determined not to let this setback defeat her spirit, Mabel took a step back and observed the interactions around her. She watched how easily the young salesman connected with customers who looked like them, young professionals dressed in suits and ties who seemed to fit right in. Mabel knew that appearances could be deceiving. She had lived long enough to understand that true worth came from within. With every glance thrown her way, every whisper shared among staff members, Mabel's resolve grew stronger. She decided it was time to take action. If they wouldn't come to her, then she would find a way to make them notice her presence. She took another deep breath and prepared herself for what lay ahead. With newfound determination coursing through her veins, Mabel turned back toward the manager and made eye contact with him directly for the first time since entering the dealership. There was something powerful about standing tall despite being underestimated. As she stood there amidst all the glitz and glamour of the dealership, Mabel felt both vulnerable and empowered at once, a mix that ignited a fire within her soul. She was not just an older woman in bright clothes, she was Mabel, a woman with dreams and aspirations just like anyone else who walked through those doors seeking something special. With each passing second filled with anticipation and suspense about what would happen next, Mabel prepared herself for whatever challenges lay ahead in this high-stakes game where prejudice met resilience head-on. The air thickened around them as tensions rose. What would happen next? Would anyone finally see past their biases? Would Mabel get the chance she deserved? Mabel took a moment to gather her thoughts. She was determined to make her presence known in this dealership. With a steadying breath, she began to browse the vehicles, her fingers gliding over the sleek finishes of the cars. Each touch sparked a sense of excitement within her, and she admired the features with genuine interest. The cars were beautiful, and she could imagine herself driving one, feeling the wind in her hair. As she moved from one vehicle to another, Mabel felt the eyes of the salesman on her. She sensed their skepticism, their doubts about whether she could afford any of these luxury cars. But she was not here to prove anything to them, she was here for herself. Just then, a young salesman named Jake approached her. He looked unsure, his body language suggesting he was reluctant to engage. Mabel noticed his hesitation but decided to smile warmly at him. Jake began talking about a luxury model, trying to upsell her with enthusiasm that felt forced. He pointed out all the fancy features and shiny details, but Mabel could see that he still viewed her through a lens of doubt. Instead of feeling intimidated, Mabel responded with witty banter that caught Jake off guard. She made light-hearted comments about how she didn't need all those bells and whistles to be happy. Her laughter filled the air, surprising him and breaking the tension that had hung between them. As they talked, Mabel began sharing stories from her life on the farm. She spoke about waking up early to tend to animals and how she loved planting flowers in her garden. With each story, she subtly hinted at her financial situation without revealing too much. She talked about how hard work had always been a part of her life and how she had saved diligently for this moment. Jake listened intently as Mabel's words painted a picture of resilience and determination. He started to see her not just as an older woman in bright clothes, but as someone with depth and experience. Her stories resonated with him in ways he hadn't expected. The more she shared, the more he realized that Mabel was not just any customer, she was someone who understood value and hard work. As their conversation flowed, Jake's attitude began to shift. He started to ask questions about what Mabel was really looking for in a car. Instead of pushing the luxury model, he listened carefully as she described her needs, something reliable for running errands and visiting friends. Mabel's confidence grew as Jake engaged with her more genuinely. She could see the change in his demeanor as he began to appreciate her perspective. They moved from car to car, discussing features that mattered most to her: safety ratings, fuel efficiency, and comfort. With every passing moment, Mabel felt herself breaking through the barriers that had initially held her back. She no longer felt like an outsider, she was becoming part of this conversation about cars and dreams. Jake started showing genuine interest in helping Mabel find what suited her best rather than focusing solely on making a sale. He pointed out practical options that fit her lifestyle while still maintaining an air of respect for her choices. Mabel felt hopeful as they walked together through the dealership. The earlier dismissive glances from other salesmen faded into the background as Jake's newfound respect shone through. It was clear that he was beginning to see beyond appearances and assumptions. As they reached a model that seemed perfect for Mabel, a sturdy sedan with plenty of space, she felt a spark of excitement again. This car represented not just transportation but freedom and independence. In that moment, Mabel realized how important it was for people to look beyond their biases and recognize each other's stories. She had faced prejudice today, but also found an unexpected ally in Jake. Their conversation continued, filled with laughter and mutual respect as they explored options together. Mabel felt empowered by this connection, knowing that sometimes all it took was one person willing to listen and understand. The air around them buzzed with possibility as they moved closer to finding the right car for Mabel, a car that would symbolize not just a purchase, but a triumph over prejudice and assumptions. As they stood by the sedan, Mabel could sense that something significant was happening between them, a shift from skepticism to understanding that could change everything for both of them. With anticipation building inside her once more, Mabel wondered what would happen next in this journey toward owning a car that reflected who she truly was inside. Would Jake continue to support her? Would others finally recognize her worth? Mabel stood by the sedan, feeling a surge of confidence. She had come this far, and now it was time to take the next step. With a steady voice, she asked Jake about financing options. His eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, he fumbled through his sales pitch. He had not expected her to ask such a direct question, and it showed in his stammering response. As Mabel listened, she could sense the shift in the atmosphere around them. Other salesmen began to gather nearby, intrigued by this unexpected interaction. They whispered among themselves, their curiosity piqued. Would this older woman actually make a purchase? Did she have the means to buy a car? Mabel felt their eyes on her, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt empowered. Jake continued to explain the financing options, but Mabel could see that he was still underestimating her. He spoke slowly as if she needed extra time to understand. Mabel smiled inwardly. She was ready to show him just how serious she was about this purchase. With a calm demeanor, Mabel reached into her bag and pulled out her checkbook. The sound of the pages rustling drew everyone's attention. The whispers among the salesmen grew louder as they realized she was not just browsing, she was ready to buy. Mabel took a deep breath and announced that she wanted to buy 2 cars, one for herself and one for her daughter. The words hung in the air like a bolt of lightning. Jake's mouth dropped open in disbelief as he processed what she had just said. The other salesmen exchanged glances, their skepticism replaced by shock. Mabel felt a rush of satisfaction as she watched Jake's expression change from surprise to realization. She had caught him off guard, and now he understood that she was not just any customer, she was someone who knew what she wanted. The atmosphere shifted again as Jake scrambled to regain his composure. He quickly began discussing the details of both purchases, trying to keep up with Mabel's confidence. She felt a thrill of excitement knowing that she had turned the tables on their assumptions. As they talked about the cars and financing options, Mabel noticed how the other salesman leaned in closer, eager to hear more about this unexpected turn of events. They were no longer whispering doubts, they were now curious about how this story would unfold. Mabel felt a sense of triumph wash over her as she realized that she was changing perceptions right before their eyes. She was not just buying cars, she was challenging stereotypes and proving that anyone could be a serious customer, regardless of age or appearance. Jake worked diligently to provide her with all the information she needed. He began to show genuine enthusiasm for helping her find the right vehicles for both herself and her daughter. The earlier skepticism faded away as he recognized Mabel's strength and determination. As they discussed options for her daughter's car, Mabel shared stories about her daughter's life and how much it meant for her to have reliable transportation. She painted a picture of family connection and support that resonated deeply with Jake. With each passing moment, Mabel felt more at ease in this space that had once felt so unwelcoming. She could sense that something significant was happening, not just for herself, but also for Jake and the other salesmen who were witnessing this transformation. The excitement in the air grew as they finalized details about both cars. Mabel could see Jake's attitude shifting completely. He was now fully engaged and eager to assist her in making these purchases happen. As they moved closer to completing the transaction, Mabel felt a sense of accomplishment swell within her. She had faced prejudice head-on and emerged stronger than ever before. This moment represented more than just buying cars, it symbolized breaking down barriers and challenging assumptions. The other salesman watched in awe as Mabel confidently navigated through the process, proving that anyone could achieve their dreams if given the chance. She had transformed from an underestimated customer into a powerful force within the dealership. With each signature on the paperwork, Mabel felt herself stepping further into her power. This was not just about owning cars, it was about claiming her place in a world that often overlooked people like her. As they wrapped up the details of the sale, Mabel couldn't help but smile at how far she had come since entering that dealership earlier in the day. She had faced doubt and prejudice, but had turned it into an opportunity for growth and connection. With everything coming together, Mabel realized that this experience would stay with her forever, a reminder that resilience can change hearts and minds. As they prepared for the final steps of completing both purchases, anticipation hung thick in the air once more. What would happen next? As Mabel stood at the sales desk, the excitement of completing her purchase filled her with a sense of accomplishment. Jake was busy processing the paperwork for both cars, and Mabel felt a rush of anticipation. She could hardly believe that she was about to drive away in not one, but two vehicles. Just then, the dealership manager walked in, his expression shifting from routine indifference to shock as he took in the scene before him. The manager's eyes widened when he saw Mabel standing confidently at the desk, ready to finalize a cash transaction for two high-end vehicles. He had expected to see her leaving empty-handed, just as he had assumed when she first walked through the door. Now, he was confronted with a reality that challenged everything he thought he knew. Tension filled the air as the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The whispers among the sales staff turned from skepticism to awe. Mabel stood tall, discussing her needs and preferences with clarity and confidence. She explained why she had chosen each vehicle, detailing how they would fit into her life and serve her family well. The staff watched in disbelief as Mabel articulated her thoughts with ease and authority. They began to realize their error in judgment. This woman was not just an older customer, she was knowledgeable and decisive. The respect that had been absent earlier began to blossom among the salesmen as they witnessed Mabel's strength. Jake felt a wave of humility wash over him as he processed the transaction. He had initially underestimated Mabel based on her appearance and age, but now he saw her for who she truly was, a strong woman with dreams and aspirations just like anyone else. He recognized his own biases and felt a deep sense of regret for how he had treated her at first. As Mabel continued to speak about her choices, Jake listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that this experience was teaching him a valuable lesson about respect and understanding. It was not just about making a sale, it was about recognizing the worth of every individual who walked through those doors. The manager stood by, still processing the situation. He could feel the shift in energy around him as more staff members began to gather, drawn in by Mabel's confidence and poise. They were witnessing a moment of transformation, not just for Mabel, but for themselves as well. Mabel's presence commanded attention now, and she could sense the change in how they viewed her. The earlier dismissive glances were replaced with looks of admiration and respect. She felt empowered knowing that she had challenged their assumptions and opened their eyes to a different perspective. As Jake finalized the paperwork, he made sure to treat Mabel with the utmost respect. He thanked her for choosing their dealership and expressed genuine appreciation for her business. Mabel smiled warmly at him, recognizing that he had learned something important through this experience. With each signature on the documents, Mabel felt a sense of triumph wash over her again. This was not just about buying cars, it was about breaking down barriers and proving that anyone could achieve their dreams regardless of age or appearance. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as they approached the final steps of completing both purchases. The staff members exchanged glances filled with newfound respect for Mabel, realizing how wrong they had been in their initial judgments. As Mabel prepared to leave the dealership with not one but two new cars, she felt a surge of pride within herself. She had faced prejudice head-on and emerged victorious, transforming doubt into respect. Just as she was about to put the pen down, an unexpected thought crossed her mind. With a playful smile, she looked at Jake and the other staff members gathered around her. She revealed that she had always wanted to drive a convertible. Mabel's eye sparkled with mischief as she joked about needing it for chasing after cows on her farm. The room erupted in laughter, breaking the tension that had lingered earlier. It was a light-hearted twist that caught everyone off guard, reminding them of the assumptions they had made about her lifestyle and financial status. The laughter echoed through the dealership, and Mabel felt a warm sense of connection with everyone around her. This moment was not just about buying cars, it was about sharing joy and breaking down barriers. The staff members, who had once viewed her with skepticism, now saw her as a vibrant person full of life and humor. Jake chuckled along with the others, realizing how much he had misjudged Mabel. Her playful spirit shone brightly, and he felt grateful for the opportunity to learn from her. The laughter created an atmosphere of camaraderie, transforming the dealership into a place where everyone felt included. The earlier whispers of skepticism had been replaced by genuine curiosity about Mabel's life on the farm and her dreams for the future. This moment tied back to their initial assumptions, highlighting how wrong they had been in judging her based on appearances alone. Mabel felt empowered as she completed the paperwork, knowing that she had changed perceptions in this space. She had turned what could have been a negative experience into one filled with laughter and connection. Mabel solidified her place in this dealership, not just as a customer, but as someone who brought joy and perspective to those around her. The staff members watched in awe as she transformed their understanding of who could be a car buyer. As they wrapped up the final details of the sale, Mabel's light-hearted comment lingered in the air, creating a memorable moment that would not soon be forgotten. She had shown them that anyone could have dreams, regardless of their age or appearance. With both purchases finalized, Mabel felt a sense of triumph wash over her once more. She was ready to embrace this new chapter in her life with enthusiasm and joy. As she prepared to leave with her new cars, anticipation hung thick in the air again. What adventures awaited her? Would others continue to see beyond appearances? Mabel climbed into her new convertible, her heart racing with excitement. The engine purred to life as she adjusted her seat and took a moment to soak in the feeling of freedom that came with this new car. With a big smile on her face, she waved goodbye to the dealership staff. Their faces lit up with smiles in return, a mix of admiration and newfound respect shining through. As she drove off, the wind tousled her hair, and Mabel felt a sense of triumph wash over her. She had not only purchased 2 cars, but had also changed perceptions in a place that had once felt unwelcoming. The road ahead stretched out before her, full of possibilities and adventures waiting to unfold. Meanwhile, back at the dealership, Jake gathered with his colleagues to reflect on the day's events. He shared Mabel's story with them, emphasizing how she had turned their assumptions upside down. He spoke about how they had all underestimated her based on appearances alone and how Mabel had taught them an important lesson about respect and inclusivity. Jake's colleagues listened intently as he recounted how Mabel had approached the sales process with confidence and humor. He highlighted the laughter they had shared and how it had transformed the atmosphere in the dealership. The staff began to realize that true worth cannot be measured by how someone looks or their age, it comes from their character and experiences. As Jake spoke, he could see a shift in his colleagues' attitudes. They began to understand that every customer has a story worth hearing. Mabel's visit had opened their eyes to the importance of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their background. The conversation flowed as they discussed ways to improve their customer service approach. They talked about creating a more welcoming environment for all customers, ensuring that no one would feel judged based on their appearance or age again. Back on the road, Mabel felt a wave of joy wash over her as she drove through familiar streets. She thought about her farm and how much fun it would be to take her daughter for rides in her new convertible. The sun shone brightly, and she could already picture the smiles on their faces as they cruised together. Mabel's heart swelled with pride knowing that she had made a difference not just for herself, but for others who would walk through those dealership doors in the future. She had shown them that everyone deserves a chance to be seen for who they truly are. As she continued down the road, Mabel couldn't help but think about all the adventures that lay ahead. She was ready to embrace this new chapter in her life with open arms, knowing that she had challenged stereotypes and changed hearts along the way. The day had started with doubt and prejudice, but ended in triumph and understanding. Mabel knew that this experience would resonate far beyond just one visit to a car dealership. It was a reminder that resilience can spark change and foster connection. With each passing mile, Mabel felt more empowered than ever before. She was not just driving off in a new car, she was driving toward a future filled with promise, joy, and endless possibilities. As the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Mabel smiled at what lay ahead. She knew that this was just the beginning of many wonderful adventures yet to come. Mabel envisioned herself speaking to groups of people, sharing her journey from being judged to becoming empowered. She imagined telling them about that day at the dealership, the laughter, the camaraderie, and how she had turned skepticism into respect. It was a powerful reminder that anyone can change perceptions with courage and authenticity. She thought about how important it was for everyone to recognize their worth, regardless of what others might think. Mabel wanted to encourage people to embrace their uniqueness and stand tall in the face of doubt. She believed that by sharing her experiences, she could help others find their voices and reclaim their narratives. With each passing moment, Mabel's resolve grew stronger. She knew that societal assumptions could be powerful, but so could resilience and determination. By living authentically and sharing her truth, she hoped to inspire others to do the same. Mabel stepped out of her convertible and took a deep breath, feeling grateful for this new chapter in her life. She was ready to embrace every opportunity that came her way, knowing that she had already made an impact on those around her. As she walked toward her home, Mabel felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She was not just a woman with a new car, she was a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt underestimated or overlooked. Her journey would continue to unfold, and with it came the promise of inspiring others along the way. With determination in her heart and joy in her spirit, Mabel knew that this was just the beginning of many wonderful adventures yet to come. Meanwhile, back at the dealership, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The sales staff gathered to discuss the events that had unfolded, and their feelings of guilt began to surface. In a quiet meeting room, a psychologist was brought in to help them process their emotions. He spoke about the psychological effects of bias and prejudice on both the individuals who experience it and those who perpetuate it. The sales staff listened intently as he explained how their initial judgments about Mabel had stemmed from societal stereotypes. The psychologist emphasized that feelings of guilt were common when people realized they had acted unfairly. He encouraged the staff to reflect on their behavior and consider how it affected Mabel. They began to understand that their assumptions had not only hurt her but also limited their own experiences. As they shared their thoughts, some salespeople admitted they felt ashamed for how they had treated Mabel at first. They recognized that they had missed an opportunity to connect with someone who had so much to offer. This acknowledgement sparked a deeper conversation about personal growth and the importance of empathy. The psychologist guided them through exercises designed to foster understanding and compassion. He encouraged them to think about times when they had felt judged or misunderstood themselves. This exercise helped them connect with Mabel's experience on a more personal level. Meanwhile, Mabel's resilience became a focal point of the discussion. The psychologist highlighted how she had faced bias throughout her life but had never let it define her. Her strength in standing up against prejudice was an inspiration for everyone in the room. They began to see her not just as a customer but as a powerful example of perseverance. As the conversation continued, the sales staff started to realize that growth comes from recognizing one's mistakes and learning from them. They understood that acknowledging their biases was the first step toward change. This experience with Mabel could lead them to become better individuals and better professionals. The psychologist encouraged them to take what they learned from this experience and apply it moving forward. He spoke about the importance of creating an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued, regardless of their background or appearance. By the end of the session, there was a palpable shift in the room. The sales staff left feeling more aware of their biases and motivated to change how they approached customers in the future. They understood that true connection comes from seeing people for who they are, not just for what they appear to be. As Mabel continued her drive home, she felt a sense of fulfillment knowing that her experience would ripple out beyond herself. She hoped that her story would inspire others not just at the dealership but in all walks of life. Mabel's journey was far from over. It was evolving into something greater than she could have imagined. With each mile she drove, she felt empowered by the knowledge that resilience could spark change, not just in herself, but in others as well. Another day back at the dealership, a legal expert was invited to speak with the staff about the implications of their actions and the broader issues of discrimination in customer service settings. The legal expert began by addressing the serious nature of bias and discrimination in business. He explained that when customers are treated unfairly based on their appearance, age, or any other factor, it can lead to significant legal consequences for businesses. The staff listened attentively as he detailed how these actions could result in lawsuits or damage to a company's reputation. He emphasized that everyone has the right to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their background. The sales staff began to understand that their initial treatment of Mabel was not just a personal failure, but a reflection of systemic issues that needed addressing. The expert outlined potential legal outcomes for businesses that fail to create an inclusive environment. He explained how discrimination claims could arise from customers who feel they were treated unfairly. This could lead to costly legal battles and negative publicity, which could harm the dealership's standing in the community. To prevent such issues, the expert discussed the importance of implementing training programs designed to educate employees about biases and how to recognize them. He highlighted that awareness is the first step toward change. By understanding their own biases, employees could learn to treat every customer with fairness and respect. The staff began to see how crucial it was for them to engage in ongoing education about inclusivity. The expert suggested workshops that would help them develop empathy and improve their interactions with customers from diverse backgrounds. He explained that these programs could foster a culture of understanding within the dealership. As he spoke, the sales staff reflected on their experiences with Mabel and how they had failed to see her as a valuable customer. They realized that by not addressing their biases, they had not only hurt Mabel but also missed out on an opportunity for growth and connection. The legal expert encouraged them to think about how they could create a welcoming atmosphere for all customers moving forward. He emphasized that inclusivity should be woven into the fabric of their business practices, from hiring processes to customer interactions. They understood that creating an inclusive environment was not just about avoiding legal repercussions, it was about fostering genuine connections with every customer who walked through their doors. Meanwhile, Mabel continued to reflect on her day as she prepared for bed. She felt hopeful knowing that her experience might inspire change beyond herself. The thought of helping others feel valued filled her with joy. As she drifted off to sleep, Mabel envisioned a future where everyone would be treated fairly and respectfully, regardless of their appearance or background. She believed that through education and understanding, businesses could transform into spaces where everyone felt welcome. With Mabel's journey sparking conversations about bias and inclusivity in ways she had never imagined. It was clear that this experience would resonate far beyond just one visit to a car dealership. It was a catalyst for change in many lives. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy this story.